For those of you who don't know, the campaign has been eagerly awaiting this moment where we get to be in the presence of of Jenny Lewis, the casting director of Heated Rivalry, and we're so eager and happy to have you here, Jenny. I feel like it's been many weeks that the rumors have been circulating, and Avi finally confirmed them the other day on an episode of The Surfs. Um, I don't know if you've heard this, Jenny, but on that interview, Avi made clear he's been kind of bouncing across the country, and so admittedly has not had time to watch the full series. Is that correct, Avi?
I'm exactly halfway through,
Okay.
and I tried to watch episode 4 last night when I got back home to Vancouver, and I fell asleep. Um, but that was not a reflection on episode 4, which was
Absolutely not.
amazing. Yeah, some people's favorite episode, actually.
He did also say on this episode of The Surfs that he tries to watch the show on airplanes when he's commuting to and from tourist stops, which I don't think was actually a decision that was sanctioned by the campaign. And
No,
perhaps,
I have heard stories. There's like many worlds of posts about people watching it on airplanes.
is that right? Is that a
Yeah,
whole subgenre on social
it's
media?
a whole subgenre
How would
apparently.
you
Yeah.
characterize it, Jen? That subgenre, like,
I would not watch that on an airplane myself. Because like unless you can just stay neutral while you're watching it, it might
yeah.
be rather embarrassing. Although the first time I watched it, the first episode was at the Tiff Bell Lightbox with a lot of other people. And it was awkward. I might have been doing a little bit of that. Uh,
but
so yeah, I don't know. It's sort of like alone time.
yeah, but I mean, hopefully, Jenny, just like basking in the glow of all of your hard work behind the scenes. I
Oh,
think
of course.
all of us here just really want to thank you for your service. It has been, even though Avi hasn't finished the series, I will say straight out right now that there are many of an email on the Lewis for Leader campaign calls that have all been planned while watching Heated Rivalry. And so while Avi maybe hasn't finished the series, there are many of us who have been working on the campaign who definitely have finished it, if not once, twice, three times. And so, we're just really thrilled to have you here. And I'd love to start. I mean, we're going to get people to drop some questions, I think, in the chat. But would love
Sorry,
to hear.
our parents are phoning me by
We just
mistake.
got our family
They
WhatsApp
they
call.
can't
Just
get into the Zoom.
you
I'm
want me
like,
to
Oh
send
no.
Jen, let me send them the link. You carry
I've
on.
sent them the link. I was like, ask my child. He's in the house with you. He will help you.
Yeah, let's get the whole family here, please. That would
Yeah,
be.
so cute. So cute.
But Jenny, let's start with Heated Rivalry. I would love
Sure.
to just kind of hear a little bit more about the casting process. How many people did you audition for the show? How long did it take? And really, I would love to know like what stood out to you about Connor and Hudson because you really found just two absolute gems. So tell us more about it.
Thank you. Well, I will say when we had the first meeting, Sarah, my business partner, and I were like, okay, sure, that'll be easy. And I think along the way, I joked and said, I'll just put those specs into my 3D printer and just make those guys for you. Because there were so many specifics to those roles. And I think we approached it the way we do every show, every film, which is just, there's actually a process. There are third party places that put out your breakdowns, which is a description of the roles, and they host the auditions for us. And so, like, there's a lot of just standard steps that we went through. In this particular case, we also released on certain platforms in Europe because we felt like Ilya might come from abroad. I think we were hoping we might luck into an expat who, like somebody who had left Russia. I think the show is banned in Russia, to the best of my knowledge. And I think we were cognizant of the fact that it might be hard for an actual Russian who ever hoped to return to Russia to play this part. And so it wasn't a total shock that we didn't get a lot of people from Russia submitting for the part. But anyway, so we did go further afield than you usually get to do on a Canadian show because our budgets are tiny. People are talking about that a lot now. It's a good conversation for us to be having. And so you're restricted in how far you can go, how many non-Canadians you can hire because there are content rules, funding based on your second highest paid screen time needs to be Canadian. We have a lot of rules of different levels of funding people tap into, but in many ways it gives you creative freedom. Because in the States, if you're making a show like this, then it's, oh, who's the biggest star? Who can we put in here? Who's going to drive numbers? And on a Canadian show, especially when you have an accomplished team like Jacob and Brendan, who I'm sure Crave trusted completely, then you get to just look for the best actors instead of playing the name game, or my worst thing, playing the social influencer game, which to me is the most
What does that look
painful.
like? What does that, what do you, what does
I
that
mean,
mean?
it's usually useless because if somebody's really made a platform for themselves on social media where they are monetized and one post from them, you have to pay them $250,000 to make that one post. And we're offering them, I mean, I'm not going to go through ACTRA minimums for you, but if you're working under the ACTRA, our local union agreement, and even if you're option, there are like set rates. You can always negotiate up from there, but there's set minimums. And so if that's what you're working for, you might do a whole show and maybe you're lucky you come out having made, I don't know, $80,000 for shooting for 2 months or something. So an influencer, if they really want to break into acting, which they may already be doing on their platform, why are they going to, they want to be in a proven thing with a big studio or a fancy director, something that they feel is like equivalent to where they already are. So it's going to launch them even further. They're not going to take a risk on a basically potentially scaled job in Canada. We get asked it all the time, and it never works out. I don't think we've ever pulled it off. We've been asked lots of times to do it.
Hey,
But
and can I ask Jenny a
yeah,
question?
yeah.
Have you worked with these two leads before?
I have not.
Worked at the old spaghetti factory.
Yeah, I mean, Hudson is a BC actor, and for sure, if you spoke to casting directors in Vancouver, they would be like, "Oh yeah, we've auditioned Hudson. We've hired him here or there, and they play our parts." But again, funding situations. If I'm
Right.
working in
Provincial
Toronto,
tax
and
credits.
exactly, and you need the provincial tax credits, it's a rare occurrence where we have the money to fly somebody in, put them up, pay them per diem, pay them hold days, pay them like all these little bits and pieces that add up on a production and lose the tax credit. So yes, we do see Vancouver actors frequently, but not as much as we'd hope. So Hudson was new for me, and Connor is American. So again, I don't typically cast for American leads when I'm doing something. Certainly not unknowns. If they're Americans, then they have some resume that people have heard of. So both of them were complete. Other people in the cast totally knew them already. People I audition all the time. But when it came to the two
Mom
leads,
coming through.
there's Mom joining the chat. So for both Hudson and Connor, they were brand new.
And Jenny, when did you know that you had found something really special? Like when did sort of you were like, whoa, the chemistry is really here between these two actors?
Well, you see them separately, and you see when you're looking for such specific stuff, you may not get to see hundreds of options because it's so specific. But I definitely saw a lot of people for both parts, and then you whittle that down because you're not going to share with the team 75 auditions per part. You're going to, watch through all the stuff and try and get it down to 10, depending on your team and how open they are, maybe 25 people or something for a part. So that's what they watch. So part of my job is understanding what they're looking for creatively, being able to articulate that, choose the select people. And I will say sometimes when you're watching a tape, I'll be like, I know I'm not loving this, but not these guys.
Mhm.
But just in general, I'll be like, I'm not loving these people, but I know they're going to love them because
Mm.
it's not about me. It's
Mhm.
about what my creatives want. And so that's like the magic for us is understanding what they want
Right.
and knowing what to look out for. So people have asked us a lot, like, how do you judge the chemistry on line because it was done by Zoom because we were all in different places. Connor in LA, Hudson in Vancouver, Jacob in Toronto. So the chemistry read was done by Zoom.
Mm.
And I think we've all
That's hard.
learned to adjust. It's hard. We've
Wait,
all learned
that's
to
a hang
adjust
on.
to
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
this.
whoa, whoa. That's a thing? A chemistry read?
A chemistry
That's like a
read is
thing
a
you
thing.
do?
But back in the day, you have them in the room together where they're like physically
Right.
touching each other, and
Yeah.
you can really it's more palpable. But I will say, since we've all pivoted to this online version, I cast Children Ruin Everything and Son of a Critch completely by self-tape and Zoom. So building whole families in this weird little boxed world. And this is a whole new art that we've had to learn how to judge in this format, which is so different. But I will say that when Hudson and Connor were together in the chemistry read in the Zoom, those guys were just um, very giving. And a lot of actors, I think, in that stressful final lap, it's hard to make room for the other person. Like you're kind of all about yourself, even though you're
Mhm.
in an audition with someone else.
Yeah.
And they were really generous with each other and they were really comfortable. They
Mm.
were really, I mean, they're really genuine guys. I think we see that on social media, and they were like that. They were goofy in the in-betweens and
Totally.
just comfortable with each other. And I do think Jacob contributes to that a
Mm.
lot. Just the
Mhm.
way he connects with actors and is
So,
unusual.
I mean, I feel it feels very hopeful to know that Heated Rivalry was cast on Zoom. Now I'm like, wow, the things that we can do on
Yep.
Zoom if we can detect that sort of energy and connection, I feel like there's a lot of potential here.
Where
Um,
Emma, I know like where Jenny didn't really answer the question because what you were
Wait,
asking was there must have been a moment, right? Like you're in the Zoom, they're doing a scene. What scene was it? How did you, was there electricity that everybody knew in a certain moment, or it's all kind of like everyone's doing their audition thing and then you talk afterwards and you find
yeah,
out what
there's a
everybody
bit of
thought.
that. I mean, I think by the time we got to that chemistry read, we knew, like I knew it would be those two guys. I didn't talk to Jacob to know was it them, but I knew it was going to be the two of them. So I don't, it's that thing. It's like that thing where certain actors have it. And I now say that certain casting directors have it. I think that it's that thing. We can't explain it, but we all just know. And I think you just know there wasn't a moment. It was just all of it. You
and
could just feel it.
I want to lift up Jenny. We have one of our super callers has asked a question in the chat that I
Oh
think
yeah,
is
please.
great. So they're a big fan, they say, of Letterkenny and Shoresy and a
Oh
rabid
yeah,
fan of Heated Rivalry. And all of those shows really have like broad international appeal,
they do.
even though or because they're very specifically Canadian. And so what do you think it is about Canadian content right now, especially that's so special and that's sort of capturing the world?
I I do think that in America things are hard and TV is a bit soulless if you watch it a lot of the time. And so things feel a little mass produced and a little watered down.
Mm,
And I think that in Canada, because our broadcasters trust our creatives,
mm.
and these three shows have crossover in the creative process, not just me crossing over in them. But they are, it's just so hard. I mean, they're not exclusively Canadian stories, but they are grounded in Canadian culture. And I think it's niche, just like how I watch a lot of British TV because they're smaller stories and they seem to have more heart, and it isn't always about the production, quality, or the, like, who cares how fancy the set is, or the it's just gritty and in it and real people, and the actors are so dedicated. And England is very similar to us, even in the way that we agent, like the agents who represent talent. It's You can just pick up the phone to a British agent, to anyone famous, like about any famous and they'll take your phone call and have a nice chat with you. In LA, if they don't know your name, might
Good
not take
luck.
your phone call, you know? So it's very different. It's a different machine. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. Avi, do you have any follow-up questions on that?
I mean, I could just listen to Jenny talk about television all day. Honestly, it's such a treat for me because like we talk about shows and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and I'm always like, Jenny, have you seen? She's like, how the hell am I gonna have time to watch a TV show if I didn't cast it? I don't see it. But then, and sometimes we'll after if I'm visiting the fam, we'll watch like a stupid British detective show or something like that after dinner. But just hearing Jenny talk about the business side of it and the way the Canadian cultural industries have, great if we have a moment, but also we need something durable in Canada.
Yes.
And particularly now, I think like the political context of the attacks from the United States economically and the horror of what's going on in the United States, this is a time when we need more Canadian independence economically, in foreign policy, in cultural creation. So I'm just like excited. Like Jenny is a superstar of this of the Canadian television industry right now, and I'm just so happy for her. It's just amazing. And you're an expert, Jen.
I'm
You're
an
like
expert.
you're a
I've
total
been doing,
expert about
people
this
keep
stuff.
asking, how long have you been doing this? And I'm like, long enough I don't remember. Probably about 24, 25 years at this point. And I do think, it was interesting. People were asking HBO if they were going to come in and give a whole bunch of money for second season. And the HBO Max guy said, why would I mess with what's working?
Hmm.
And, uh, you know,
It's really smart.
ever since Trump, even before Trump came to power, I started thinking, what what is going to happen? What's our landscape? What is acceptable content anymore? Right. And I think back to film school. I went to film school and we learned about the McCarthy era, like when it actually became mandated that you could not show a couple in bed together. And that's when we started having married couples call each other mother and father on TV and in films, and they would have two single beds in a bedroom because you couldn't show a couple. Like that was government mandated. People don't know that. And so I started thinking, what is going to get ordered? Like if you're attacking um, the healthcare workers or the police or like whatever, all the negative vitriol we hear so often coming out of the States, that's half of what's on TV, procedurals. So how do the procedurals continue? How do they skate around the issues? And so what will get ordered? And so I think that's why shows in Canada are now going to have more reach and will
Yeah.
resonate because we don't shy away from tricky content.
Hmm.
And yeah, we have lots of stuff that's just fun and procedural or whatever. We have all of that as well. But I think when you look at shows like Letterkenny, where it isn't as obvious, you go into that show thinking, oh, it's just about a bunch of small town dudes or whatever. And there's so much being said about different pockets of culture and um, you know working class people, but like there's just so many layers in there that you don't even realize when you're watching
Hmm.
it at the beginning or when you read the script or you see a bit on the internet and then you get into it and you realize. I think Canadian TV is usually so layered, even all the shows I don't work on. But I watch, things like Allegiance and the show Coroner that was on air. And there's just so much interesting TV that gets made in Canada. And I think it's our responsibility to watch our own freaking shows.
Hmm.
Like somebody asked me in an interview, why isn't there a Canadian star system? And we do have a Canadian star system. Just, people don't. We all know the names. If we say Sheila McCarthy or we say
Yeah.
Eric Peterson or Mark Critch or whatever, everybody in Canada knows who we're talking about. But outside of Canada, nobody knows who we're talking about. And yeah, I'm seeing names pop up: Paul Gross, R.H.
This,
Thompson, all
this
these
is it.
amazing stars that we have in Canada. But, oh, I lost my train of thought.
But
But
you know what
we
you were
can't
making me think of
compete.
the Quebec star system, like the top 10 movies and Canadian movies and TV shows
Yes, always Quebec,
are always Quebec because
because
there's
people watch.
so much more
People
protection in
watch.
protecting French
You're
language
right. They
culture.
have rights of the artist. It's very different in that
There's
province.
more public funding.
Yep,
There's way more public funding. There need to be more conditions of more money flowing into production, a
absolutely.
lot more, like more like it used to be. Because we should have a Canadian star system like they do in Quebec, where the top films in Canada, at least half of them, should be Canadian films.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
you're already going there, obviously.
Oh,
You're
policy.
great. You're great at
Sorry,
bridging to
policy.
politics, which is awesome. But I mean, tell us a little bit more. I would love to get into the campaign in a bit, but like we've been having these solidarity sessions, Jenny, where we kind of put your brother into conversation with different movement leaders and sort of prominent figures across the country.
Yeah.
And so, Avi, I would love to know just like what would an NDP led by you do for the arts and culture industry? What do you think is needed?
Well, look, we're already doing it. And in so many ways, the way that we're treating our campaign as a collective enterprise is trying to like dream into being the kind of party that we want to be part of and the kind of politics that we think is needed in Canada today. So seeing already in our kind of trusting our audience and our organizers and our supporters to do their own thing. So I think just weaving art and culture and our full selves into every part of this political work is something that we've done just naturally because nobody told us not to, and that's how people are. And I'm just unleashing people to be their full selves is a huge part of how we stop compartmentalizing. Oh, this is the politics part. It's grim, it's serious. No way. It's got to be joyful. It's got to be real. It's got to be our whole selves. But that also means that it has to be supported economically. And
Yes.
I think a lot about the New Deal in the United States and how much public art was created in a generational moment where the government stepped up in an era of epic crisis. And it wasn't just the stock market crash. Remember that the Great Depression was an ecological crisis as well, the Dust Bowl that forced people off the land and into the cities. So there were a lot of things going on that are similar to today. And the government actually stepped up in a kind of a national mission moment, and part of that was art. Diego Rivera murals, Woody Guthrie being paid to write songs about the Columbia River, which is like Roll On Columbia, Roll On is a song about hydropower, right? He was working for the Tennessee Valley Power Authority. Like we have arts funding organizations. They are shriveling on the vine. It is ridiculous in a moment when Canada has to surge in all of our own independence, economically, culturally, diplomatically. We need to be refunding Canadian arts like our lives depended on it. That means huge increases in grants, Canada Council grants, all the provincial grants. Like we have this beautiful industry, and we've skilled people like Jenny creating unforgettable shows like Heated Rivalry that are literally rocking the world. Another one I just want to mention because it came out of the Quebec system we were talking about. Has anyone seen Empathie? Empathy?
I know about it. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my
Yeah, I know. Oh
freaking
my God.
God.
Yeah.
This is like, I know it's heated rivalry moment and everything, but Empathy is the best television show that I've seen in years. And that Quebec production, written and some of it directed by the lead actor, who is a superstar, has gone off in France. And the whole cast, the whole second season has been delayed because France has fallen in love with this Quebec TV show and they're losing their shit over it. And so the cast is just like touring France being superstars right now. We have the capacity to do that globally. And this would be a great moment to see way more government support. And then we have to talk about the CBC. Listen to Radio Canada if you want to hear like what CBC Radio used to have the resources and the journalism to do, and the very cautious and over controlling management culture should be cleared out and let the actual journalists do like a lot more journalism in the CBC. and restore all of that local production. Because it used to be that CBC and these big anchor broadcasting centers, they're empty, huge empty CBC broadcasting centers in Regina and like across the country, right? That have been hollowed out from cuts. And they used to shoot dramas in there. There are sound stages in there. There are like whole underground corridors full of like makeup rooms that haven't been used in decades. And like there's a lot of capacity in the national broadcaster that could be feeding into our film and television culture as well. So there's just a few ideas. But we need
and our university programs as well have all been slashed. We used to be like the number one provider of animators in the world, and those programs have either been shut down or scaled back. It is that entryway, that in between to figure out if you want to, live the hard life of being in the entertainment business. But the fact that we don't have the same level of film programs, animation programs, acting programs, art programs, fine art programs, is very depressing. So the funding needs to go back there as well, because art is always the first thing cut. Right?
Yeah.
First thing cut in our, elementary schools. Oh, that's not important. It doesn't matter. It so matters at every stage of the way.
This is a moment where I think we desperately need to expand our political imagination. And I think that arts and culture is at the forefront of helping us to do that, to help to really kind of envision and lay out for people what a different world would look like.
Yeah.
I think something that has been really, really cool that I just want to lift back up about working on this campaign is not only the way, there's been music at events. We've had artists who have dropped by on our calls in order to sing songs and just bring in art and culture and poetry. And that has been like so beautiful and joyful. And I think in this moment of just such profound despair and heartbreak and cynicism, it is so helpful to actually just feel held by the arts, and how many people come into a space because they're like, wow, this is different, and it's joyful, and that has been so incredible. And then the other thing that I was thinking about is in this moment where education for the arts is being completely slashed, something that this campaign has done that I don't think is given a lot of voice or known is we have like young graphic designers and animators and videographers like working alongside some of the very best. And the way that sort of mentorship can be woven into our movements in order to make that possible is like truly extraordinary. And I think something that could be brought into the NDP writ large. Why not have a political vehicle that kind of embeds the arts into it? And so, yeah.
And if not the NDP, then whom? I just, you guys, one of the active people in the chat is Mike Wing, whom I just had a call with right before this, and we met because a mutual friend came to our event in Edmonton. Mike is a disability activist in Edmonton. We just had a fantastic call about disability policy and politics. And Mike was saying that he has a friend who has a disability and wants to become a YouTuber. And part of that is animation, but she can't afford to go to school for it. And so Mike says we need programs that encourage young people to follow their dreams and passions and not let financial accessibility be a barrier. And this is the other thing that we, as we touched on education and stuff like that, but actually art needs to be valued in public policy, not for its commodity, not for its financial value, but for its social value, for its cultural value, for its value to our spirit, to our collective project. And like this, the other thing, Emma, you and I worked on a lot of Green New Deal policies going back all the way to the LEAP manifesto 10 years ago. And that sense that we are a people coming from many different backgrounds with all kinds of differences, good and bad. Inequality is not, we're not saying erase all of that stuff. It's like, as we are a people who are doing a thing, and there is a together, there is an us, and nothing actually tells you that like art. And so that sense of mission in society is missing. And when we put it in there, confronting the climate emergency, confronting unfairness and inequality, corporate consolidation, the surveillance of us by big tech, and now AI being brought in not only as a surveillance and extractive technology, but as a financial bubble that could crash on on our whole global economy. Like we're fighting things in a joyful way. We're fighting them together, and we need art as a central part of that. And I've been thinking a lot about AI in the context of this conversation. And Jen, I did want to ask you, because I know the animation programs that are getting devastated.
Yep.
Naomi talked to someone who runs a very important animation program here in Vancouver at one of the universities, and they finally placed all their co-op students, and then they all got laid off because the entry level
AI.
is getting replaced by AI.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering whether your world in television production is getting affected yet, or what people are talking about in terms of the threat from generative AI.
I think there's just the threat at the moment. It hasn't totally started yet. There's a threat to the administrative side, like to casting directors that, I hope we're having a moment. It's the first ever Oscar coming up this year for casting, that people are starting to understand, one, that we exist and what we do and the creative vision we can bring to a project. But there are, programs being trained on the auditions that are on these third-party sites. We have no say over what they do on their sites. And, the talk is that they're trying to create algorithms so that actors can just submit a tape, I'm sure pay to submit a tape to the website, and that based on AI's learning of what's a good audition, it will then choose what to show to the creative team, and then agents won't be needed, because that whole back part of like us talking to the agents and trusting their instincts about which actor might be right for something, those relationships we've built, all of that and how is that? I mean, in so many ways it's beneficial. They don't have to pay us. Agents don't get a cut, but who's going to get screwed? Oh, actors, because you need an agent to negotiate for you. I have an agent who negotiates for me. You need somebody else because they are negotiating with the machine. And so you need that person to stand up for them above and beyond the union minimums. And so if you take away the agent and you take away the casting director and you just make it this weird AI, tunnel, then the actors are going to have nobody to support them and and it'll do away with the unions as well. Like it's all, and do I think that's a conspiracy? No, I think it's real. I think they are hoping to do that. I think that shows like Heated Rivalry sort of prove that there's no AI algorithm that was going to get to this show. So I think
Click from that. That's the
right?
clip. That was the clip.
Exactly. I was
That was
thinking
the
the
clip.
same thing. I said, okay, we've got it. What's
In,
the
out,
timestamp?
market.
There you go. So I think it's anyway, but it definitely is a threat. And, I'm hearing rumblings that the unions agreements are up for negotiation, and that the Writers Guild of America is talking about striking, and ACTRA isn't in a position, like our agreement just renewed, so we're not there yet, about AI. That's the big issue.
Good.
That they are talking about potentially striking over AI. So it hasn't hit us yet, but for sure it will. My biggest glimmer of hope is my son's generation. I don't know if he bothered to tune in, but like they see AI from 50 miles away and they hate it. They hate it. And I was getting worried because the star gossip machine, which unfortunately is a necessary driving force in our business, when I talked to my son and his friends, they didn't have stars they cared about. They might know about social media influencers or whatever, but it wasn't the same thing as when I was young and you saw everything that somebody was in. You had posters on your wall and you obsessed and knew every little detail. And I feel like, for good and bad, that Heated Rivalry has reawakened this in everybody. This like star power thing where we want to see where they are and what they're wearing and who they may or may not be dating and like all that nonsense. But it's made everybody sort of excited to see that again. And that is a necessary part of connection. And you guys were talking about like this group, this thing that I used to joke. You guys had Billy Bragg, my obsession, with you a while ago. And I used to joke, I'm like, could there be a Billy Bragg dating site? Because, like, if somebody loved Billy the way I love Billy, I could date that person because I would know they're good. They're good if they love Bill. And I used to joke about that. But seeing what I'm seeing in my algorithm anyway on social media, the way that Heated Rivalry has brought community together. People are making friends. People are, I think, dating. People are like, this is something I've never seen before. And so it shows the power of art, that good art speaks to people on so many levels. And when it hits the mainstream the way it has this power to bring people together in meaningful ways. And we're seeing this with athletes suddenly coming out, and like it's crazy. And also just to say that our society needs this. I mean, the uptake in America of this, the content of this show, that's also a glimmer of hope, right? Kids hate AI and they can see it coming. So that gives me hope. they have no interest in it. And that that this community is being so embraced in America. They're so hungry for not MAGA. And it shows us that really at a grassroots level.
The opposite in every conceivable way.
That's right.
Breaking taboos around sexuality in the most testosterone fueled places.
Yeah. Yes.
So I was talking to Mike earlier in this call about the disability revolution that we still need to have as a society,
Don't
right?
need to have.
And
Yep.
there's still so much marginalizing, so much fear and shame and like inability to embrace the fullness of who we all are. And so we still have a lot of cultural transformations that have to take place.
And that's a funding point too,
Yeah.
right? Like a set, it costs a lot of money to make a set. And if you have to build in accommodations into that process, most shows can't afford it.
Right.
And they can't afford to have an actually blind person on set or a person in a wheelchair on set. And so the writing doesn't follow. Like the writing needs to start, but the writing sort of gets a dead stop because there isn't money to actually make that happen on camera. Right. And so then the writers just get shut down so many times. Nobody could make that show if you have those characters in it. So funding is a big piece of the problem there because we're not set up to properly accommodate people.
All right. So step 1, get Avi elected as the next leader of the federal NDP.
Correct.
Step 2, get him in the House of Commons. Step 3, unleash funding for the arts. And
yes.
then step 4, get many, many, many more shows that are needed. I want to thank you guys so much for being here, and Jenny for joining us. I'm going to get people, we have a short amount of time left until this deadline. Okay. And so we want to get people on the phones. We want to get them reaching out to their people. But just any last sort of words of wisdom, words of encouragement that you want to share with everyone here. Or embarrassing stories about your brother. The table is wide open.
Wait a second. Nobody told me about this.
It's time for extra time for that. No, I do not. Avi is a lovely, wonderful brother, and I do not have any embarrassing stories.
Appreciate your lies, Jen.
No, I just don't remember anything. You're off the hook.
But can I put you on the spot for something? Because
yes, of course.
Any production like Heated Rivalry is going to have stuff that people want to know that you're not able to say.
Correct.
And I just because I know you know where the lines are because you're a consummate professional. But indeed. Is there anything that is there any trivia or like any like fans
but little
show that you could tell us, like an exchange you had with, with Connor Hudson, some little stupid detail from a meeting that wouldn't violate your NDA or whatever Jacob makes you sign, or something embarrassing about Jacob. You've worked with Jacob Tierney for 20 years.
I have
Your
worked
cast
with
is
Jacob Tierney. Yes, a long time. I'm like, no, those are in the vault. Those
okay.
stories of our youth
Okay. Okay.
are not repeat. No. You know what? No, I have nothing. I have nothing. I wish I could give tea. I will say, I was told by the guys that January was planning month and February would be starting to kick into gear on plans. And I actually don't know more than that. I know I'm
In terms
still
of season two,
hired
in terms of
in
season
terms
two,
of season two.
and
I
you're
know I'm
working on
still
it.
hired
You're working on season two. Okay.
unless I did this and now they're like, you're out, Jenny. Yes, I am back for season two. So I will be working on it. The when I don't know, for reals. But I do know it's coming, and I don't know which characters, and I don't know. And somebody asked me about that. They're like, "Oh, have you started thinking? And do you know who you would put?" And I'm like, "No, I have learned not to think that way because until I hear what they want, wouldn't matter what's in my head. I could mess it up. So I just wait till they give me the creative, and then I go.
Do you think that there's going to be more secrecy around the scripts and stuff like that?
I think it's going to be crazy pants.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be lockdown. We cast, my business partner casts all of the boys and that whole universe, as well as the new prequel and Gen V and those shows. And we've worked on other shows too. It's all code names, fake sides, NDAs before people audition. So I think we're in for that world. We weren't in that world for first season.
Yeah.
So that was easier. But
They were
this
just like
season,
they were like Heated Rivalry episode 4 scripts, just kind of like,
yeah, no,
sitting on the
yeah,
front
just lying
walk next to the
around.
groceries and
Yeah.
like
We were sitting in the coffee shop talking about it. Anybody
right.
could have walked by and heard us.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, now it's just going to be on lockdown for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't even know how we're doing that. Yeah.
So exciting.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, Jenny. It's been a real
Oh, a pleasure. Look, I'm very pleased that Avi will now be introduced as my brother,
yes, that is
because
Naomi Klein's husband, Jenny Lewis's brother. I'm just racking them up here, people.
this is perfect.
Nothing
This is
but
what
bona fides for
That's
me.
what I've lived for. It is what I've lived for, to him be my brother. That brings
yes.
me great happiness. That's my career success right
There
there.
you go.
Right there.
Well, I'm so happy that we could provide that for you, and
Thank
we're
you.
so pleased that you were able to join us. I'm going to
Oh, it was a
invite
pleasure.
Hannah's now going to come on and talk to people about how to reach out to their friends and family. But let's say hi to your parents one last time and
Yes.
thank them for
Hi,
joining us.
Mom.
And you
Hi,
guys can
Mom.
hop
Hi,
off and
Dad.
get
Thanks
Hi,
for
any family.
watching.
Hi, all the Nivelters here. I think some of you are here.
I saw Zev. Zev's in here.
Dev's in here.
Our
Yep, the whole
nephew.
fam. Our nephew.
the whole Lewis family is here, and
Oh,
we're
Elena's here
honored to.
too.
Woo! Our sister,
Our,
too.
our
Oh,
less important
oh
sibling.
no, we should have had the full
Don't
sibling
even. The
rivalry kind
most
of fully come
important.
together. Okay, well, next time we'll also get Ilana in here
Okay,
and do
good.
the
Yes.
She's a
full
powerhouse. She's
thing.
a power.
Yeah.
She's the executive director of Rainbow
Rainbow
Railroad.
Railroad.
Yeah, a really important organization.
That's
An
right.
incredible family.
Yeah. Maybe there's a Heated Rivalry Rainbow Railroad.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure that will be in the works at some point.
There should
Yeah.
be for sure.
I might have to
All
go
right,
have a
let's
family meeting
spotlight
on that.
Hannah
Thank
and
you.
get her up here.
Let's
And
get back to work,
thank you so
people.
much,
Only a
Avi
few
and
hours
Jenny.
left.
Thank
Bye,
you,
See you all
everyone.
very soon. Thank you so much.